Good evening. Welcome to part two with Sister Angelica LindseyAli, also known as the Village Auntie, the Queen of Kunyaza, the Orgasm Oracle. So we're going to be hopefully joined by Sister Angelica soon. For those of you who are joining, Sister Angelica is a intimacy expert based in the United States. She's also a relationship coach, an author, a published speaker, the founder of the Village Auntie Institute. She provides one-to-one counseling and workshops and seminars to women, both Muslim women and non-Muslim women of different ages, to help them understand sensuality, female sensuality from an Islamic and African, traditional African perspective. And we're speaking about quite a few things on the first part, and hopefully this second part I'm going to try and answer some of the more questions and speak to the village auntie more about maybe some of our upcoming plans in the year ahead. I'm just waiting for Sister Angelica to join. I think she's here. I was trying to go through some of your questions. Oh, she's back. Alhamdulillah. Did you take a drink? Did you get a drink or something? Have a break?
No, I just gave cookies to my son.
Okay. I'll be honest. I had a live. I went on someone's live a couple of weeks ago, and I forgot to cream my lips. So someone's messaging me like, "Look at your lips, are so dry." So I was thinking of that. I was thinking of that halfway through this. I was looking. My lips dry because I know my lips are pink. So I was thinking, yeah, they dry. So that's all. That's another reason I wanted to still have a quick glass of water. I've got some Vaseline, just make sure they don't look too ashy.
That's the most African thing. You see yourself.
You see yourself, yeah. In the back of my mind, I was like, don't disgrace the family name. Don't disgrace the family name.
Oh my God. Habib, I did get a few messages from sisters on WhatsApp and inbox messages, DMs about A Taste of Honey. They want to know, is it available digitally for sisters who may be in a location where they can't get a hard copy delivered?
Unfortunately, it's not. Yeah, I was thinking actually whether to put it on. Actually, I'll be honest. I don't think I'm going to just. It's not available at the moment, but I'm thinking whether I should put it, convert it to like an ebook. But I'm not too sure yet. Kunyaza is, but unfortunately, A Taste of Honey isn't. But I probably need to think about whether I'm going to do that or not. Just because I like a hard copy. And another thing is that with a number of Muslim organizations, when you've got a digital book that's Islamic related, they will then just give it away for free. And with my first book, what someone did, a couple of people did, they actually photocopied my first book, Illuminating the Darkness, and they were selling it that way. So I was just thinking, because obviously when they photocopied it, that's why I was like, to be honest, I prefer like to have the hard copy, because I know if I were to convert it and sell it digitally, then people would just start distributing it for free. And someone actually was trying to give me a lecture saying that, it's beneficial knowledge and Islamic knowledge, so it should be available for free and this, that, and the other. I was like, I'll put in a lot of years into that. I'm not giving it away for free. I said, a lot of the stuff you can find it online, but
better reception.
So
No, don't make
unfortunately,
it
I mean, I probably won't put it on ebook, but maybe my next one I might do that.
I also think A Taste of Honey works better as a physical book because it's like a dictionary or an encyclopedia. Like, it's something you have to keep going back to. You can't just read it once all at one time. Like, you really need to like take it in doses. And I don't think that's easy to do with an ebook. So
yeah. And I think there's something, for me anyway, something special when you've got a hard copy of a book. It just feels, and especially if you're using it as like a reference guide or whatever, to me, I just prefer, I don't know. But with maybe my next book, I might put in an ebook, but unfortunately, Taste of Honey is not available as an ebook. And then now that my lips aren't dry, they don't look so ashy, we can go to the I'm not gonna lie, that was in the back of my mind. I was worried about that.
It wasn't. You were fine. I would have told you. I would have sent you a side message.
Yeah. I'm not gonna lie. I would have deleted the first part for the first video if it was. I just said, no, you're not listening. No one's gonna watch that anymore. Okay, so the next question. Sorry, what just got, what makes one lose interest in sex?
So asexuality is a thing. There are people who are asexual. They do not crave any type of physical sexual activity. And that's perfectly fine, right? That's a sexual orientation, right? People who are asexual. But if you have been a sexual person and you start to lose interest in sex, that always, to me, signals that there is a mental health issue that you have to deal with. It could also be an issue with nutrition. So depression, anxiety, PTSD, these are all causes of lack of sexual interest. Also, the type of food that you eat. You know, if you're eating heavily processed, overly fried, heavily sugared food, it can make it difficult to, to feel amorous. So I would check what you're eating and what you're consuming mentally as well. It could also be a hormonal imbalance. I am perimenopausal, and I can say that in my studies about menopause, that's also a concern. It's usually the opposite though. Once you hit menopause, your libido sort of spikes, but generally it's something that is either psychological or physical in some way.
Okay, I've got another question. This one is a bit of a long one, so sorry, you have to bear with me. So I have a question for the sister. Having children makes it so hard to even communicate with my husband. Our evenings consist of putting the children to bed and me very often falling asleep with the baby. I feel we have distanced and we argue such a lot and irritate each other. Does the sister have any advice or tips to get a healthy balance? We both work, so our families already babysit a lot for us, so we don't really want to put on them more, so we can have our time together. By the way, my children are 4 and 1. So yes, that's. I think yeah. It's basically, I think she's any advice and tips on how she can communicate and maybe spice up her marital life with 2 children.
I have good advice for that because I have 4 children. Okay. You have to prioritize your marriage. You have to stop thinking of yourselves as parents first. That is not popular, especially in 2020, especially in a lot of Islamic communities where you take on the name. Like for me, I would be Suleiman, right? But I'm not just Suleiman. I'm also a woman. I'm a woman first. And we have to prioritize our marriages over our role as caretakers. Why? Because the children come out of the relationship. So when the children are born and then you just abandon the relationship, and I'm not saying that this person is abandoning the relationship. I'm using, extreme examples. But if you just abandon the relationship, then the children no longer have that foundation which they were brought into. And it affects the children, it affects the whole structure of the family. And Esther Perel, who is a Belgian psychologist and sex therapist, has talked about this, how a lot of times we replace that tactile intimacy that we would once get from our spouse with children. So, if I'm breastfeeding, for example, I go to work all day, I come home, I'm breastfeeding my child, I'm playing with the child, we may do some co-sleeping. That's great, but I also need to have physical space with my partner. So it means prioritizing. Now, I know that in some cultures, that's not considered to be appropriate. But at some point, these children are going to grow up and leave, and you're going to have to be with your spouse. Are you going to have this 18-year-old gap where you just put a pause on your relationship? No. So this is what I did, and this is what I would suggest. You have to set some schedules and some structure in your life. If you are working and you have children who are 4 and 1, my children were 3 and 1. So there's a 2-year age difference between them for both sets of children. You have to send those kids to bed. Do not let them sleep in your bed forever. I let my youngest, co-sleep for a while, put the children to bed, have date night at home. Date night does not have to be going out to a restaurant. It could be, let's watch this Netflix show together. Let's have dinner together. Make sure that at least 3 nights per week, you all are having at least one meal together. Make sure you are praying together. Make sure that you are communicating throughout the day. I'm a huge fan of sexting. Listen, sis, that's your husband. You can send him those pictures. You know, hopefully y'all not having any problems and he won't leak the pictures, but you can, you know, be creative, be sensual. Foreplay does not just start in the bedroom, but you have to prioritize your marriage. I see this happen with a lot of couples. As soon as they start having babies, all of the excitement gets out of the relationship. And there is a way to have that balance. You can have a sexy marital life and still be a good mother by being a complete person that helps you to be a better parent. And one of the ways that we find completion is through experiencing interaction with other human beings. And why not let that human being be your husband?
Lovely. Another question, does size matter? I'm sure that
Let me drink some water. Oh, Lord.
The person who sent that question, they might be having some insecurity that you're laughing at them now.
Well, no, I'm laughing because
I'm joking.
I do. So you're the only man that I can talk about like sex and things like that publicly with, and even privately, because we're two professionals, right? And there's no shame, but I was like, I know that people are going to see me and Habib and they're going to ask some off the wall questions. So this is one of them. Does size matter? Yes and no. So I did a video about this that I actually got into trouble for because a brother said it was too sexual. It's a video where I used cucumber, squash, a carrot, and a jalapeno to talk about sex. And it was really a video about male body positivity. Size can matter. So if your husband has a micro penis, right? So if it's very small when it's erect, it can be a problem because sometimes you just want to feel your man inside of you, right? And you know,
what fruit is that? Is that the jalapeno?
That's the jalapeno.
Yeah, that video was hilarious.
That's the jalapeno. But let me tell you, the jalapeno got so much love after that video. Sisters were sending me messages and said, sis, I had a man who was a cucumber and he did not know what to do with it. But I had a man who had a jalapeno and he rocked my world. It is my professional opinion that length and girth, so length and width, do not matter as much as technique. Because if his stroke game is whack, it's like having a Maserati and you don't know how to drive. Like, you know, if you just getting on top and you're doing the jackhammer, being able to have some type of technique with the stroke, understanding the female, you know, genitalia, all of those things to me are more important than size. I think that a lot of women who've never had sex before, by the way, say, well, my man has to be packing. He has to have, you know, that's why they say, oh, I want to get an African man. I want to get a Caribbean man because, you know, they're packing. First of all, that's a lie. Second of all, it's not that the size of their genitalia. It's that in certain cultures, you know, let's look at men who come from the islands, right? You see a man dancing a soca and he's winding his waist, you can pretty much tell how he's going to get down in the bedroom. These are things that are indicative of technique, right? So technique is more important than size. That is my professional and personal opinion. So brothers who are not as well endowed, work on your stroke game and make sure that it's the complete package, because penetrative vaginal sex also, I'm just going to say it can also be boring. So you have to have more tricks in your toolbox than just a big penis.
Lovely. Okay, so any advice on getting on, sorry, this question's not worded. Any advice on getting on the guilty, embarrassed feeling pre and post intimacy? Sure. No, sorry, this was linked to the previous question. I didn't, I'm just literally reading how it was written, but I didn't understand exactly what. Any advice on getting on the guilty, embarrassed feeling pre and post intimacy?
Let me tell
or maybe
you something.
Getting over.
Let me say this to women. Stop talking bad about your body. Stop thinking poorly about your body when you are intimate. Sis, I don't care what size you are. You could be a size 4, you could be a size 14, you could be a size 24. If you are naked in a room with a man who loves you, with a man who is committed to you, he already knows what you look like, sis. Get over this idea that men do not like fupas, men do not like, sag and this and that. Some men like that. And even if all men don't like it, your man must like it because he's in the bed with you. Stop feeling embarrassed. That is the one place that you have to explore. We can be, I am buttoned up and tightened up in every aspect of my life. I'm a program director. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a mother. I need a space in my life to be buck wild. Sis, take that space in your life to be buck wild. Why would you be ashamed of it? Oh, what will my parents think? If your parents are in the room watching you have sex, you got bigger problems. Stop worrying about what people think. Like, and I get it. Body positivity is not easy. We can look at our bodies and say, oh my gosh, I have stretch marks. I have this, I have that. If you don't love your body, especially in 2020 when we've lost so many people, love the body that you have and embrace it. And this idea that we should be ashamed of something that is a very natural act by which most human beings were created is beyond me. So just think about it as that. Think about it as you engaging in an act of worship that is very natural, that is very appropriate, and that is also very fun.
And I would just say, I want to plug Philly Johnson's book again. Read and buy Passage. It's got, I think, 2 chapters on self-love and body positivity and what you spoke about in terms of your experiences in Senegal. And there's some ayahs as well. And there's some examples of where you can use positive affirmations and things like that to kind of help you kind of love yourself. So definitely I would plug the book again to make sure you read that.
And I'll put the link to download Passage. I'll put it back in my bio after this live, so people can go click the link in the bio when this live is finished to purchase it.
So with the, I know you mentioned with the upcoming course in that you're doing with the Institute in January on storytelling. Are you doing an intimacy course anytime soon for women?
Yes, I'm going to do a course on seduction, and it's going to be specifically looking at jonge, which is like the Senegalese, art of seduction. It can even be expanded because there's lots of commonalities in West Africa. So we're going to talk about, waist beads, the use of traditional forms of what I would call lingerie, what in Nigeria they call it kayen mata, the aphrodisiacs. So we're going to talk about that as well. Yeah. And it's all going to be rooted in this idea of building internal self-confidence. So it's going to be a course on basically how to seduce your man. I tell sisters all the time, if you ever want to spice up your relationship, you get a becho. Bechos are like these very loosely crocheted skirts. Get a becho. Get a thong that matches it. And when your husband comes home, just be like cooking dinner, like washing the dishes with just like a thong and some high heels and a becho on. If that doesn't turn him on, nothing will. And then if he says, what is this? Say, well, what do you mean? What is this? This is nothing. I'm just be very nonchalant about it. It's about boosting that self-confidence, but not being too eager and too thirsty. So we're going to have a workshop, a 4-hour workshop on that. So that's going to be that intimacy course. And then I'm struggling with it, and perhaps you can help me with this, but I've had lots of requests, not just from the Muslim community, but from all communities for Kunyaza. And that's one of my favorite workshops to teach, but I'm struggling with how to do it virtually, because before now, it's only been something that I've done in person, because we actually cover positioning and things too. So I'm trying to figure out a way to do it so that people can't like screen record me or anything, doing things. But if I'm able to figure out a way to deliver it virtually, I do want to start doing Kunyaza workshops.
I've got a funny story about Kunyaza, reminded me of that. But before I get onto that, in the jonge course, are you also going to be covering Orgasm, since obviously you're the Orgasm Oracle? And I remember you mentioned on your podcast about the 15 routes to orgasm. Is that going to be covered also in?
Yes.
Okay,
And it's going to be covered. because I also want to cover a piece in there about women who have undergone, I want it to be inclusive. So I want women who have undergone female genital mutilation or female genital cutting, where the clitoris has either been snipped or removed. I also want to give them tools for activating that sensual power. And so in the 15 routes to orgasm, there are several that are not centered around the clitoris. So we're absolutely going to talk about that.
Lovely. Fantastic. So I'll get to my Kunyaza story. I was actually
Oh,
going
so
to ask you, that was one of
somebody
the
said,
questions.
what is Kunyaza?
Yeah, so what is Kunyaza?
Someone asked that.
No, I'm asking you.
You're asking
I'm the
me?
interviewer. Yeah. I'm the interviewer.
Kunyaza is an ancient African art of female ejaculation. So kunyara is the female ejaculate fluid. So it is, to explain it in brief, it is the rhythmic tapping of the labia and the clitoris to elicit female ejaculation, or what we in the West would call squirting.
Lovely. Okay, so my Kunyaza story. So this was, I think, this was 2 weeks ago. So I do get a number of, obviously, messages and DMs about Kunyaza. So someone messaged me and they were like, "Do you teach Kunyaza?" And I was just like, "Yes, I do, but I haven't got any workshops going." And he was like, "Have you got any workshops going?" And I've just said, I haven't got any workshops coming up. And then he was like, "Okay, are you going to do any virtual workshops?" And I said, "I don't think so, but I might, maybe early next year." And then he was like, "Could I speak to you?" And this is by Instagram. I was looking at my phone thinking, I'm speaking to you now. What's the problem? He's like, "No, can I speak to you over the phone?" So I was a bit irritated. So I was like, he said, "Can I speak to you over the phone?" I don't know this guy from Adam. And I'm like, "I'm not going to give you my number." So I said, "You can call me via Skype." So anyway, he called me via Skype about 20 minutes later. And then he was asking me the same question: "Do you teach Kunyaza?" I said, "Yes, I do teach Kunyaza." Do you teach any workshops?" "I do, but I'm not doing any now at the moment." "Do you do virtual workshops?" Asking me the same questions. And I was thinking, what's wrong with this guy? And he was like, "I've got a brother. I need some advice. I need some advice. I need you to teach me Kunyaza." I was like, "Okay." And then he was like, "Do you do private teaching?" I was like, "No." He's like, "I'll pay." I was like, I'm fine." And then I was like, what are you looking for? Because I do workshops. We teach you how, I can show you how it works and things like that. He said, "Basically, I need you to come to my place and I want you to do Kunyaza on my wife so I can learn." I was like, it's not that, honestly, I was like, it's not that kind of
It's
party.
Kunyaza, not cuckolding. Oh!
Yes. And he was I was like, "Where did you get that from?" And he was like, "You said you're a sex educator, you teach people how to do Kunyaza." And I was like, "No, it's not that type of party." And then he said, because there's another person, I'm not going to say his name, who teaches squirting. And a number of people teach squirting and they call themselves sex educators. That's how they teach it. They actually they either do it by two ways. They either sleep with the woman and then like cuckolding and the man watches and they say, "This is how you make love. Or they ask the couple to make love to each other and they're watching and then they're writing notes and they say, "This is what you need to do." So that's why I was thinking I might need to change I might need to change the sex education to something else because, and I've received actually a couple of those messages where people have asked to actually teach it, like, and I was like even some when I did my last workshop earlier this year in January, people was asking myself and my co-host whether we're actually going to actually show people how. It's like, no, it's not that type of party.
They
So
thought it was like a
unfortunately,
sex show?
yeah, I do, yeah, you do get that. So that's why I would say, yeah, you have to kind of be careful with the,
Yeah,
because as soon as you put squirting and especially if it's going to be, yeah, and especially because someone can record it, because there was someone from Kenya who was teaching women how to squirt, but he does a workshop, but not actually live with the women. But then someone was filming it and they put it up on Pornhub and these type of websites. So that's why I get, yes. So that's why I
a
was just going to say you have
huge
to be very,
fear.
yeah. So
Oh,
that's, yeah, yeah. That's
that's
kind
it.
of,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's no. I don't even know what to say.
I was dumbfounded, but I was just laughing. I was just like, wow. Anyway, but I thought that story was quite funny. Sorry, I didn't mean to upset you.
No, it's funny. I just can't, like, people are a lot.
Yeah, it's
People
it's really
are
no, it's because you have people doing that. That's what I realized. So then I wasn't aware of it, but I didn't realize that there are prominent people that have been featured in mainstream media outlets. And they obviously they self-entitled or they call themselves maybe like sex educator, Kunyaza, not Kunyaza, sorry, squirting whatever expert, and that's how they teach. There's a
So
couple
the
of people in
first time that I
particular.
did a Kunyaza workshop with people who were not like personal friends, like, and it wasn't a workshop when I'm just teaching my personal friends, like, oh, tell them to do this, do this, do this. I actually did it at my sister-in-law's house, and her friends came, and one of the women came. So I was demonstrating positions like, you know, a good starting position for, you know, practicing Kunyaza. And she was like, oh, good, because I wore my pretty panties today. And I was like, sis, I that's good. I'm an advocate of wearing pretty panties every day. However, I won't see them. She's like, oh, she said, I didn't know and she said, I've gone to classes where there were all women, but they actually like did demonstrations in the class. I was like, we stay fully clothed in class, but that's one of my biggest fears, because I know that women in hijab are a huge fetish on sites like
Yeah.
Pornhub and, you know, all these other sites. So that's you know, I really want to teach more. I want to teach more women about Kunyaza, but I also want to start to certify women to teach Kunyaza. But I can't. You just affirmed that I can't do it virtually. I can't.
Yeah, I mean, even as a man, that's why I don't really like to do and as well, because with the Kunyaza workshops, I want to obviously make sure people understand about the ethics and the understanding that the ancients and Africans had about sex. That it's sacred. It's not like a performance trick. It's not a form of sexual applause. So that's why I know a lot of people are obsessed with squirting to kind of see it as like, this is something I can make the woman do rather than an experience that a woman can enjoy. It's not like a party trick. So that's why I don't want to devalue it. So that's why I'm kind of holding back somewhat in terms of doing a lot of workshops and things like that, because I just think we have to respect as well those African traditions and the people that was transmitted from the different generations.
Because it's
Okay,
not
so
like a parlor trick. And like, I see people suggesting animation, but I don't know if people realize that like there's a whole subgenre of porn that is cartoons. So even with
yeah,
that, animation is off limits. It's just something that,
yeah.
and usually when I do Kunyaza, I only limit it. I never have more than 10 women in a workshop,
Oh,
because
really? Okay.
it's just easier to control. So yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Next question.
Did you block that guy, Habib?
Of course, of course. That is just.
Oh my
But
God.
how can you give about how to have a polite conversation with a prospective suitor to see if he'll have any emotional intimacy issues?
Oh, that's a
So,
great question. You know, I heard someone say that, you know, in Islam, love comes after marriage. I don't believe that has to be true. I don't believe that you have to wait until you're married to develop a level of emotional intimacy with the person. I think we do this a lot. I have great emotional intimacy with my best female friends. And emotional intimacy is really allowing yourself the space to be vulnerable with another person. It doesn't mean sharing everything about your life, but it means allowing that space. So I think, sure, there's a way to do that in the courtship process. And it can be with, you know, with small things like talking about, where you want to go in your life. You should be talking about your families and your family structures, and without giving away, deep family secrets, you can develop intimacy that way. For me, it's terrifying to think I would marry a person that I have not at least allowed myself to let my guard down a bit with. Again, not divulging too much, but I think emotional intimacy is a muscle that you have to flex and use often. And it's not necessarily falling head over heels in love, but it's allowing yourself the space to emote within the confines of an authentic structure, an authentic relationship that is moving towards commitment. And I think that that's something that has to be modeled. We don't model courtship well in the Muslim community, but I definitely think that emotional intimacy is something that could be established.
Lovely. Another question: how can I be more assertive in bed? I seem to attract selfish partners. That's from a
You got
woman.
to be selfish. They can only be selfish if you allow them to be selfish. They're selfish because, listen, sis, don't waste the ghusl. Don't. Do not lie down and let some man soil you and plant his seed inside of you and get you all wet. You got to go wash your hair and do all that, and you did not get what you came for. That is not the sunnah. That is not what you should be doing. There is no man that I know of, married to, related to, been friends with. There's no man that I know of that would allow you to play with him in bed, and then right before he reaches the point of ejaculation, he rolls over and goes to sleep. But there are countless women who do this every single day. Stop letting these brothers play you. If that means that you have to set down some ground rules, if that means that you have to let someone know, look, I'm not being properly satisfied, then you need to do that. Is there a way to do that tactfully? Yes. Especially if this is someone that you love. If this is your husband and he's not satisfying you and he's being selfish, then you need to let him know. You do not have to give someone complete access to your body. Your body has more rights over you than your spouse does. And Habib said it in the first live. One of the grounds for a Muslim woman seeking divorce is if she's not sexually satisfied. There's a reason for that. So you need to speak up, because if you can use your mouth for his pleasure, you can use your mouth for your pleasure. Speak up and communicate about what it is that you need. There's nothing wrong with that. Nothing.
Um, this is actually a question for myself. Can you talk, or can you share, sorry, some of your experience in Senegal, where you was obviously being taught by African elders? 'Cause I just want people to kind of hear like some of your background and obviously the knowledge that you received when you was in Senegal. That which you can
Sure.
share, sorry.
Sure. So my experience with the Senegalese community actually started in America. When I started studying Islam, it was through a Senegambian community, the community of Sheikh Hassan Cisse in Detroit. So Detroit has, at that time, it wasn't large, but now it's much bigger, very big Senegalese and Gambian community. I was also a sabar dancer. So you know, I won't do it online, but if you invite me to your wedding, I'm gonna get out and I'm gonna do my thing, right? And because I was such a good dancer, the elder women would like, where are you from? You know, who are your people? And so they sort of like would invite me in. They would invite me to come and eat. And then slowly but surely, they would start talking to me about things like bin, sep, which is a type of I have some here. It's like a type of reed that you put in water and you drink it and it purifies and it makes like the vulva area very sweet smelling and sweet tasting. Like once they saw that I was interested, they would give me things. They would give me information. And it was always elder women. It was always women. At the time, I was 21 when I first started studying. And these were women in their early 50s, early 60s, who were giving me lots of information about, you know, well, this dance that you're doing, this is what it was originally used for. And I, you know, some of the things, of course, I can't share online. But
Yeah.
once the Senegalese women invited me in, and then I went to Senegal, I was really immersed. And you know, I could speak a bit of Wolof, so you know, I could communicate with the elder women. And then when I came back, I started being exposed to, you know, because in America, you have people who move in sort of Pan-African communities. So the sister from Congo sees me sitting with the Senegalese auntie. So then she wants to tell me about what they do in her culture. And then the Nigerian sisters. And so it sort of branched out from there. And even with Somali sisters, I have some Somali aunties. We don't typically think of these cultures as being cultures that have a strong and rich tradition of sensual arts, but they do. It just has been hidden, and it's my goal to sort of reclaim it. So I love going to Senegal because I feel like in Senegal, it's one of the places that accepts me in totality. So I can go there as a murid of Sheikh Mahi, right? I can go there as a sex educator. I can go there as a maker of churai. I can go there as a person who, you know, wants to learn the latest seductive dance, and it's all okay. So I really love Senegalese culture for that. It allows me to be my authentic full self. And someone is saying
Beautiful.
South Asians definitely don't. That's not true. South Asians do have a very rich sensual culture, a very, very rich sensual culture. So I have to push back on that.
Yeah, I think that's I'm glad you said that, because I think it's important that rather than always looking at some, you could say maybe some negative aspects of our cultures or our history, there are some, like in South Asia, like you mentioned, or in Africa, there are examples of sensuality, positive people, sex positive people that are doing fabulous things. And rather than concentrating and enlightening and kind of lift and highlighting their works, we like to kind of concentrate on like the bad aspects. So I'm glad you mentioned that, because I know that even like, for example, with South Asian culture, you don't really mention many people, or I don't come across so many people from the South Asian community that speak about like the Kama Sutra and trying to revive that. So that's something that is being bastardized from by the West, and they've kind of used it for their own means rather than trying to reclaim that this is part of our heritage, the same way what you're doing in reclaiming the heritage of our African ancestors. So I think it's beautiful, and I think it's important that we try and reclaim from our cultures that which is positive and affirming, and kind
So
of even share it with others.
absolutely. And there was a comment that said that South Asian aunties don't teach us anything because they know nothing. I don't think that that's true. I'm not saying that every South Asian woman is walking around with this arsenal of information, but I think that there are so few safe spaces to share, right? You have the Hausa women in Kayan Mata. When I was in Jeddah, I had Bengali, Pakistani, Indian sisters when we would have small gatherings, and they would share this tea, this thing, this salve, this rub, and they would all fit under that umbrella of Kain Mata. But I think that there is such a taboo about speaking about sexuality in South Asian cultures because of the British influence, because of the Victorian influence and that prudishness that was brought on centuries ago. So not a lot of these aunties have a space to share. We think of young people being shamed and marginalized, but just think of what our elder sisters had to go through. So unless they have that very safe space, this is why I don't always talk about the names of my teachers. I have lots of African aunties. I have South Asian aunties too, who are like, Angelica, you think you know this, but have you ever heard of this? Oh, this is something, this sounds very similar to this practice that we did. So I think that it's also important for us to have these conversations and know that just because they're not having those conversations in public or even with you, it doesn't mean that they don't know this information. That's why I'm always very, very careful about relationships that I create with people, because I want them to know that what you share with me, if you don't want me to teach it to someone, I won't. If you don't want me to share your name, I won't. But I think it's misleading to say that all South Asian cultures are just naturally repressive by design. I don't think they are. I think colonialism did a number on South Asians just as it did around the world.
Agreed. So, someone mentioned an example of a South Asian sex educator, Dr. Seema Anand. Yeah, I'll definitely recommend people to check her out. She has got a book called The Arts of Seduction. She's based in the UK, where she speaks about the Kama Sutra, but you could say she's reinterpreted it for a modern reader. She speaks about the sensuality of the Kama Sutra. So she's in a good example, and she's got a number of lives. So yeah, like you said, there are examples, and it's important that we kind of highlight those people.
Someone said, what
So
about Arab aunties? Let me tell you, when I was in Saudi Arabia, I have lots of sisters in Saudi, in Kuwait, in Oman, and they're like, please keep doing what you're doing. Lebanon, like these are sisters who, see, that's the thing. There's a secret world of women that even you're not privy to, Habib, right? You're not privy to it because you're not a man. There's so much that people will tell you. So that's one place where I have an advantage, right? Because people will tell you certain things because you're a researcher, but I get to be in the space. And so I get to see the sisters who walk around with the niqab on and gloves, and they're sitting in the masjid and they're praying and they're teaching Quran, and they're very pious religious women. And I get to see them at their daughter's henna party. And I'm like, you're like a totally different sister, right? I get to see, the duality and just the all-encompassing, aspect of the sacred divine feminine that resides in these women. So, I think it's unfair to paint these cultures as monolithic. All Arabs are not the same. All Africans are not the same. And I'm going to always go back to Africa as the source and the root, because a lot of the sexual traditions that we talk about in other countries actually come from the continent of Africa. We don't give Africa enough credit for the traditions around sexuality and sensuality that it deserves, which is why no matter what the racial or cultural background of the women who come to my class, I always let them know I speak from an African-centered worldview, a Pan-African worldview. So all that whole continent, that's where I'm sourcing my information from, and I don't make apologies for that.
I think 'cause I'm just conscious of time. Someone asked, where are the men in this life? Now the thing is, there are men that's watching, or there'll be men that'll be watching after we finish, because a lot of men don't want to see people know that they're watching.
When
And
they
again,
see
a
me,
lot of it's the ego.
the
No,
men
no,
don't
watch,
come
but
up,
again,
me.
no, they
When I'm
watch,
there,
they
they're
watch.
like, she's gonna cuss us out.
No, 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 no. Far from it. A lot of men support you, but they support you in silence. And again, the male ego, we don't want to be seen as, especially learning about sex, whether it's from a man or a woman. So they'll
That's
kind of, I've had a number of brothers that's hit me up, both Muslim and non-Muslim, that was asking me, am I going to save their life? And I was like, why? Because I can't go in and people see my name. So I understand. I don't even question it.
right.
So they watch after. So again, so there are men that's watching, and again, I think with a lot of men, we learn by osmosis. We learn by our environment. We learn by kind of what is kind of seen as socially acceptable. We don't maybe want to go to like a workshop or a discussion. But I'm kind of conscious of time, and I think I've got a few minutes left before the hour's up. So is there anything? Can you talk a little bit again? I know we spoke about in part one, just for the benefit of anyone that's on this part that was on the first part, about your upcoming courses in the new year and your Village Auntie Institute. Can you speak a little bit more about that, please?
Sure.
And where people can buy the tickets.
Yes. So the tickets that I need to charge more for. Thank you for saying that too, Habiba. I appreciate it. So in the coming new year, in February, I'll be doing a 1-day, 4-hour class on the art of seduction. It is for women. It'll be an interactive class. There will be dancing. We'll be making things. We'll be talking about building self-confidence. We'll be talking about sexual assertiveness. And that will be a class we'll keep it open to about 150 sisters, but be mindful when I drop the graphic and say that registration is open, my classes sell out within a few hours. So be mindful of that. If it's successful, since it's just 1 day, we could do it multiple times. And then I'll have a 3-week storytelling course. That will be my very first class that is open to both men and women. I'm a professional storyteller. I work with the Moth, which is a global storytelling organization. So it will be an interactive class. We'll be doing some writing. We'll be going over the basics of storytelling performance. And then in the 4th week, once the class finishes, we'll actually have a storytelling slam with a cash prize. And then all of these classes fall under the Village Auntie Institute, which is an institute that was launched in September of this year. And it is a way for me to provide a certifying institution so that women who come and take my courses eventually can get certification. So I can offer a Kunyaza certification. I can offer a certification in sacred body care. I also want to very slowly open up classes for men. So I've been in conversation about having a weekend intensive for men on emotional intimacy. I'm not yet at the point where I'm ready to talk to men about sex because, I don't want to be sexualized, but I do want to have a conversation with men about emotional intimacy because I think that when men are given the safe space and the tools to do so, they are the masters of emotional intimacy. So that's what's coming up for the first quarter of Village Auntie. You can follow TVA Institute on Instagram. You can follow me, Village Auntie, on Instagram. Instagram is always the very first place that gets information. And yeah, I'm just super excited with what 2021 could potentially offer, inshallah.
And last but not least, are you available to do any like public speaking events next year if anyone wanted to contact? Obviously paid. No
Yes,
free, there's no free. Yes, yeah.
obviously paid.
So,
Yes, I'm
so you're,
available for keynote addresses, speeches, what have you. You can click the email link in my bio, and it'll be sent to my team, contact@villageauntie.com. I have been more mindful about not doing so many free events. So I've already outlined the 3 organizations that I will do a free speaking engagement for. So if you have not already been identified and sent an email, Don't ask me to come and show up for free, because I won't. And inshallah, I will be opening back up for one-on-one and couples consultations starting in February of this year also. So those are 50-minute sessions with either individuals or couples where we talk about intimacy and relationships.
Barakallah fiik. Alhamdulillah. That was beautiful. That was brilliant. Thank you very much for gracing us with your presence. I hope people did enjoy it and find it as beneficial as I did. I'll try and save this live because I've literally got, I think, a couple more minutes. Yeah, just again, thank you again for everything, the work that you're doing. May Allah preserve you and reward you and give you the best of rewards, not only in this world, but in the hereafter, inshallah, for you and your family. And again, just please keep it up. But also make sure you look after yourself and don't burn yourself out trying to look after everyone. But yeah, thank you again so much. And we'll be in touch soon, inshallah. Assalamu
Thank you.
alaikum.
Walaikum salam.